If a fairy tale was written in England, perhaps it would not begin in a castle. There would be no towering palace, no enormous gates, no distant kingdom hidden beyond the mountains. Perhaps it would begin with a narrow country land, a garden filled with flowers, an old stone walls, and a small house with a thatched roof. A house that is not perfect. Its walls lean slightly. Its roof has darkened with age. It has endured hundreds of years of rain, wind, and sunlight. But it is still there, quietly standing in the English countryside, and somehow, when you look at it, you feel as though you have just stepped into a story. Because there are villages in England where houses are modern houses, where country lands feel like something from another world, and where a simple roof can transform entire landscape into a fairy tale. When we imagine an English thatched cottage, we may picture the same image: a small house, a golden roof, a garden filled with flowers, and a quiet country land. But travel through the English countryside and you quickly discover that there is no single kind of thatched cottage. Some cottages are bright white beneath the sunlight. Some are built from warm honey-colored stone. Some are made of brick. Some have dark timber frames standing out against white plaster. Some are tiny and humble, almost hidden among the trees. And others are larger, more elegant, but still crowned by the soft flowing shape of a thatched roof. Each house has a different color, a different shape, a different story, and yet, when they stand along an English country land, they all seem to share one extraordinary ability. They can make an ordinary place feel worth stopping for, worth looking at twice, and make you wonder, how can something as simple as a house be this beautiful? There are places where houses don't seem to have been built on the landscape. They seem to have grown from it. Elmley Castle is one of those places. Here, the cottages don't appear to be trying to dominate the countryside. They belong to it. Thatched roofs sit among the trees. Old walls blend into the colors of the land. Gardens open toward the road, and beyond the village, the hills rise into the distance. There is nothing particularly theatrical about it. No enormous monuments, no crown entrance, just a house, a road, a garden, a landscape, and sometimes the simplest things create the most beautiful scenes. Perhaps that is what makes old English villages so special. You don't need a castle. You don't need a grand monument. Sometimes all you need is an old roof, a sunlit wall, and a quiet country land. And suddenly the landscape begins to feel like a story. One of the most beautiful things about England's thatched cottages is that they are not all the same. A black and white timber cottage tells one story. A golden stone cottage tells another. A small white cottage surrounded by roses feels completely different again. The materials change, the colors change, the shapes change, and so does the landscape around them. But the thatched roofs somehow connects them all. It softens the buildings. It gives them movement and makes them feel less like objects and more like something that belongs to the countryside. Perhaps that is why these cottages never feel mass-produced. No two roofs are exactly the same. No two walls carry exactly the same marks. No two gardens grow in exactly the same way. Every cottage seems to have its own personality, its own history, its own little world, and perhaps that is where the magic begins. And then there are places where the beauty does not belong to one house alone. It belongs to the way everything comes together. In the Cotswolds, the stone has a character of its own. Under the sunlight, the walls can shift from pale gold to warm honey, and then to deep amber as the day begins to fade. And when a thatched roof rises above those stone walls, the contrast becomes almost perfect. Stone, thatch, trees, flowers, rose, light. Nothing seems to exist entirely on its own. Each part completes the next. And perhaps that is why places like this can feel like paintings. But the interesting thing is, they were never built to become paintings. These houses were built to be lived in, to walk in, to shelter families, to survive the winter. They were not created for visitors. They were created for ordinary life, and perhaps that is what makes their beauty even more special. They are beautiful without ever having been built to be beautiful. There is a reason these old houses seem to belong so naturally to the land around them. They were shaped by what the land could provide. Timber from nearby woodland, stone from the surrounding countryside, straw from the fields, grit from wetlands. For centuries, the house and the landscape were not separate things. The landscape provided the materials, and those materials become the home. A thatched roof may begin in a field. A stone wall may begin in a quarry. A timber frame may begin in a forest. And eventually, all of those things become a house. This is very different from much of the modern world. Today, materials can travel across countries and continents. Houses can look almost identical in places thousands of miles apart. But these old homes often tell us something about the place where they were built. They tell us what the land provided, what the climate was like, and what people learned to do with the materials around them. Perhaps that is why they don't feel as though they were placed into the landscape. They feel as though they were born from it. But the beauty of England does not exist only in its most famous destinations. Sometimes the places we remember most are the small villages. Ashton-under-Hill is one of them, a place that doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need a grand squares. It doesn't need a long list of famous attractions. There are simply roads, houses, gardens, and the feeling that life here has moved to a different rhythm for a very long time. Perhaps that is what makes small villages so special. They don't seem to be trying to become beautiful. They simply exist. And over time, that naturalness becomes their beauty. An old door, a wall that is slightly uneven, a roof that is not perfectly symmetrical, a road that curves gently around a corner. Things that might be considered imperfections in the modern world become the things that give a place its character. But there is something that beautiful photographs rarely show us. A thatched cottage might look as though it has stepped out of a fairy tale. But keeping that fairy tale alive is not always simple. A thatched roof faces rain, wind, sunlight, and time. Eventually, it needs care, repairs, and sometimes a complete replacement. Replacing a thatched roof can cost tens of thousands of pounds. The exact cost depends on the size of the roof, the materials used, the design of the building, and the conditions of the existing roof. But perhaps the more important question is not how much is this house worth. The real question is, what does it take to keep a fairy tale alive? Because money is only one part of the answer. There are materials to source, skills to reserve, people to train, and generations of knowledge that cannot simply be replaced overnight. In England, there are around 25,000 listed thatched buildings and many more that are not listed. That is an enormous number of buildings, each with its own history, each requiring care, and each depending in some way on people who still know how to look after them. Research cited by the UK government suggests that around 80% of the cereal straw used for thatching in England is supplied by roughly 25 growers. Only around 25 growers for a tradition spread across tens of thousands of buildings. And suddenly, the fairy tale looks a little different. Not less beautiful, perhaps more beautiful, because now we understand that it does not exist by accident. Someone has to grow the materials. Someone has to prepare them. Someone has to learn the craft. Someone has to climb onto the roof. Someone has to repair what time has damaged. And someone has to decide that the old things are still worth preserving. A fairy tale, it seems, does not survive by itself. But perhaps that is exactly what makes the villages so precious. They are not perfect. They don't remain completely unchanged. And they don't survive without care. Welford-on-Avon is a place where you can feel this. The thatched cottages, the green lands, the gardens, the old walls, together they create the feeling that you have stepped into a story. But look a little closer and you realize this is not a fairy tale. This is a real village with real houses, real people, real costs, real maintenance, and generations of people who lived in these homes before us. Perhaps that is what makes them beautiful. Not that they have never changed, but that they have changed and still remain. Perhaps the most magical things about these houses is that they are not perfect. The walls may lean slightly. The roofs may not be perfectly symmetrical. The windows may be small. The roads may twist and turn. Nothing is completely straight. Nothing is completely new. Nothing looks mass-produced. And somehow that makes everything more beautiful. Because these houses feel human. They feel living, prepared, cared for, loved, changed by time, and still standing. Perhaps we are drawn to them because they remind us of something the modern world sometimes makes us forget. Not everything beautiful has to be new. Not everything valuable has to be perfect. And not everything old needs to be replaced. So, if a fairy tale were written in England, perhaps it would not be about a perfect wall. It would be about houses with slightly uneven walls, roofs darkened by time. Roads are not completely straight, gardens that are not perfectly arranged, and villages that have changed over the centuries while still holding on to a part of the old world. Perhaps that is what makes them beautiful, because a fairy tale is not truly magical, because it's imperfect. It's magical because it makes us believe that something special can still survive. And perhaps these thatched cottages are part of that magic. But now, when we look at them, we understand that their beauty does not exist by accident. A thatched roof needs materials. It needs skilled craftspeople. It needs time. It needs money. It needs care. And it needs people who believe that part of the past is still worth protecting. So when you walk through a village like Elmley Castle or Chipping Campden, Ashton-under-Hill or Welford-on-Avon, and see a thatched roof beneath the sunlight, perhaps you see it differently now. You're not simply looking at a beautiful house. You are looking at something that generations of people have worked to reserve. A roof, a wall, a garden, a village, and a story passed down through time. And perhaps that is the true price of a fairy tale. Not only money, but passion, skill, work, and the decision not to let something beautiful disappear simply because it's old. Because fairy tales don't survive because they never change. They survive because people keeps telling them, and somewhere along the quiet country lands of England, beneath roofs softened by time, that story is still being told. Perhaps you don't need to step into a fairy tale. Sometimes you only need to walk through an English village, and for a moment, it may feel as though you already have.